Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown, Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard from high atop the 18th green at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at Endeavor Hospitality and the Wow Club. Make sure you go to your Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up for the Wow Club today, start earning Wow rewards today. Also, Andy Moore Honda, number one Honda dealer in Bloomington and around here. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte. Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by, as I mentioned, Endeavor with BB's Market, where we'll be this Friday. Always looking forward to that because that has just become fun. Looking forward to getting out there, but hopefully it's going to be, I'm going to have to wear a jacket that day because I am looking at the weather. We were talking in the break, and today it's going to be 90 degrees. And then tomorrow, the expected high is 95. I'm trying to remember if there was a day where we had an expected high of 95. Maybe I'm sure there was this year, but buddy, there weren't that many of them. And for that to come now, followed by the day after that, the high expected to be 72. Followed by 68. Welcome to our world.
See, summer's got to get its last laugh in because in 2 days is when it officially becomes fall. Today's the 20th, tomorrow's the 21st. On the 22nd, it seems fitting that it's going to go down 20 degrees right after these last two extremely hot days.
Yeah, it's nuts. I said that we really didn't have a spring,
right?
So there's that. Plenty to get to. Lots of exciting stuff to talk about, though. First of all, Indiana adding beer sales to Assembly Hall for men's, women's basketball games starting this year. So
how about that?
Not really surprising. They just stuck it out there, but it had to come at some point. It was just inevitable. I mean, they've lost money in other places. It's just, it would not be smart to not make it up there. On men's basketball games, I don't know what the sales will be, of course, but probably not close to football, obviously, when you have several more thousand there. I don't think that there's going to be problems because I'll be honest with you, if I was a fan, I don't think they're going to be having beer men walking around. So you're going to have to go get your own beer. And I wouldn't be making too many trips up and down those Assembly Hall stairs to go get a beer. That may be a once a half kind of a thing.
That's number one. And the second part is, it's not going to come cheap, I'm sure. So when you pair those two things, and basketball games usually don't take as long. Like a college football game lasts 4 to 4.5 hours, which is ridiculous. Number one,
an IU game may take like 5 or 6.
Yeah, see, exactly. And then I'm not. And then the game last week had to be over 4.5 hours, didn't it?
Dude, the game before that was the worst. It was the second game. The second week was just good Lord. I'm like, are we ever going? At least it wasn't Iowa and Nevada.
Right, that's true.
But how about those fans? They kept coming back. They never left.
I would have been out.
Funny.
I'd have been out.
Well, I was watching that game. I had a rooting interest. But
I feel bad for the newspaper guys that were on deadline for that.
Yeah, well, I don't because I think it's stupid for them to have deadlines. There's just common sense when you're covering a sporting event. You can't determine when it ends. And do you want a good product or you want a crappy product? in this age of technology, I know you have to print the papers to get them sent out to do all that, but it would seem like with today's technology, it could be integrated to where it could be lasered in there into a spot.
Yeah, you
Who
think.
knows? Well, that's all. Hello to everybody hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline already. Man, Dwayne, Larry, Mike, 5 Left's already here. Travis, Michael, Jennifer, Tanis. You guys are Jennifer says that IU basketball doesn't make you want to drink as much as IU football does. Well, there is that. That's a very good point. That's a star on that. That's a good one. The extreme changes he could tell you he saw in basic training. Mike talking about the weather. Thank you for your service, sir. So make sure I'm not missing anything else. Everybody else just saying hi. Hope you guys are having a good start to your day. What else we got? The NBA changing, most likely will be changing the draft age from 19 to 18. That is big. It's what it should have been. I wish they'd have never changed it. We would have never gone through this one and done crap in college. It would have just been the same. Now it's going to be interesting, though, because these first round guys, they're not going to have a decision to make. Well, right. They have less of a decision to make. If you're a first round draft pick, it's hard to imagine someone passing that up to play in college, as important or as fun and as it playing in college is. I get that. I would hate to miss that opportunity, but if you're that good that you can go directly from high school to the NBA, I'm not sure how much you care about college, to be honest with you.
Right. I wouldn't excuse me, I wouldn't think so.
And I'm not talking about the education either.
I mean, the NIL stuff does make a little bit of a difference. But if you're a lottery pick, you're going to make, or a projected lottery pick, you're going to make a lot of money, and you don't have to deal with any of that nonsense. So this is how it should have been a long time ago. I mean, I don't know why they ever changed it in the first place. Maybe it was so you didn't have, I don't remember the explanation. Maybe it was so you didn't have players who busted and then couldn't go play college basketball. I don't know what the reason was, but this is the way it should be, in my opinion, in all sports, by the way.
Well, it's the way it is now in the NBA, and those guys that are lower to second round picks, they'll have a decision to make. But it's definitely going to, I am so glad that hopefully this is coming, because this will just eliminate a big chunk of this stuff. It's like, hey, it's going to make, and I think it will make,
you're going to say about,
unfortunately, it's going to take the superstars out. It's going to take the superstars out. But how many guys are there every year that are able to go from high school to college in the NBA?
Probably, maybe 3 or 4. I think that's probably high.
So you're not really impacting, I don't know. There may be more than that. It may be up to 10.
You think so?
Think about the one and done era every year. How many guys came out? I wonder if that information is available.
Okay, so here's what you're still going to have the one and done. There's no question about that. But what I would say is there are probably because
some guys need that development.
What I was going to say is there's probably very few players that an NBA organization would look at the high school level and take a chance on. Like when like Kobe Bryant was a guy, LeBron James, I'm sure there's Steven Jackson, I believe. There's some guys that when you just know, and you're willing to take a chance on them. There's some other guys that a team may not take a chance on it, so he may go to college anyway. So I think now, yes, you're probably correct. There's probably 9 to 10 guys who fit that one and done mold, but that's because we've seen them develop. We've seen them on the big stage. It's really hard to tell at the high school level. I mean, I know we have AAU and travel ball and all that, a bunch of different leagues that I'm not even aware of anymore. But that to me, there's just it's so hard to diagnose who's going to be successful at the next level and who's not. That I think there'd only be 3 or 4 guys who would make that jump from high school to the NBA. Now, you might still have quite a few of the one and dones, but at least it provides them an option to go to school or to go to the NBA, try their hand at the NBA.
Yeah, guys are end up having to go everywhere, and so NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said this before the 2017 NBA Finals. My sense is it's not working for anyone. It's not working for the college coaches and athletics directors that I hear from. They're not happy with the current system, and I know our teams aren't happy either, in part because they don't necessarily think the players who are coming into the league are getting the kind of training that they would expect to see. So that goes back to me talking about the difference. When someone says a guy's not ready, that's a load of whatever. Because the only people who decide who's ready are the NBA teams that draft. If they draft you, they think you're ready for them to put you through training to do whatever. That doesn't mean they think you're ready to come in and start, but they would a lot of times rather have you under their training because they think you have a ceiling or whatever the case may be, but they want you under their training, not another year of college. So there's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is interesting is, this was always a route. Well, maybe not always, but the G League. I don't know why that's not more utilized as like a farm system like they do in baseball. I would think that you would want those players to develop.
That was the intent.
I know it is.
I think it's just too scattered, but because you have too many options.
It's too scattered, and my guess is the money's not good enough. Like, you probably are going to make, if you're on the verge and somebody says we're going to have you play in the G League for a year or two, if you're really good, you might be better off going to college because of the NIL money. It's probably, unless there's some sort of contract that you sign with the professional team, those G League players don't make a lot of money. So that's another issue with that. It's all very interesting. The NBA has the tools there. They just haven't, in my opinion, utilized them very well.
But think of guys like Karl Anthony Towns.
Yep.
All those guys that Kentucky recruited, they brag about having all those guys in the NBA, They wouldn't have that because those guys were going to the NBA already.
Yep.
So they just went to the mini NBA beforehand.
They did. And now it's going to be wiped away.
Yeah. So I like it. I like it a lot. What do you guys think? We'll find out. I'm trying to find I can't find the camera. But anyway, that's big time though. That's going to affect everybody. Indiana has not really recruited or landed anyone that would fall into that category. So that works well for them. I don't think they're recruiting right now, currently, anyone that falls into that category that they expect to land. So that also would benefit them. Teams that it would not benefit are the ones that are maybe have commitments or recruiting guys that potentially could go to the NBA instead.
Yep. Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina.
We'll talk more about that later. The NFL bills are for reals. How about that? Indiana football at Nebraska. 7:30 kickoff time this week. And let's see, Mike DeCourcy joins us today. Chronic Hoosier joins us today as well. So plenty to talk about. How's your Tuesday going?
Mine? It's going great. It's going great. I got a nice cup of coffee. You know what's funny to me is we were talking about how hot it's supposed to be in Indiana, and I'm living in Florida where it's always hot, and we both are wearing sweatshirts.
Yeah. I've got to learn the how to run the system here. It's wacky. It's too cold. We got to take a quick break. We got lots coming up today here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market. You know how good it is. If you don't, you're missing out. I'm telling you, I had daggone pork chops for dinner the other night, came from there, and it's just different. The meat, all the stuff that it's just different. It's fresh. It is incredible. And I can't wait to go back Friday. I'm looking forward to this every Friday. Can't wait. Lots more coming up here. Mike DeCourcy joins us. Back with that right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting...
Very professional of me to be yawning on air.
I can't find the link. There it is. Damn. I couldn't find the camera app. I separated it. I mean, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I gotta go get coffee.
Curvy.
I'm gonna get coffee. Damn it. Shoot.
All right.
All right.
Gosh, I love owning a house, but man, I also hate it. I also just freaking hate it.
I'm saving up to buy an RV and a tiny home. That's all you need, man.
So there are people act like that owning is the only option. Like rent's obviously more expensive in most cases, but you don't have to take care of hardly any of the problems that happen in your home whenever that stuff happens. So I don't know.
There you go.
Morning, Mike.
Morning, gentlemen.
Let's talk about how hot it is in September. That I'm having air conditioner problems.
John's he's talking about the pleasures of home ownership.
Oh, it's the best.
Oh man.
Have you been able to get anybody out?
What do you mean?
To fix your air conditioning?
So I just noticed it this morning whenever I got the show started. There was water coming out from underneath of my unit. I think it's from the condensation pipe or something. I was looking it up earlier. So
gotcha.
Hopefully someone will come out this afternoon. "20 seconds, Jimbo." I think he's getting coffee. He can't be far.
So find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, September 20th. Brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant, part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go there and sign up. Also, where you can find Tom Allen and Don Fisher each Wednesday night at 7:05 for Inside Indiana Football. Welcome, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Sir, how are you?
I am well, gentlemen. I didn't realize it was beaten up hat day, or I'd have dug through my garage.
It's not presentable day, probably. Usually when you see that situation. That's like going to class back in college. It's slap the hat on, baby, and head to class.
Let me tell you too, back in college, I have really long curly hair. So when it is unkept, it will grow into like an afro. And there was one professor
Show us that afro right now.
It's long since gone, folks. It's all gone at the top. But I had a professor who would, couldn't wear a ball cap in class. And I found out the hard way that that was, if you have a bad hair day, there was no covering for it. It just looked terrible. And I'm sure I got mocked by everybody in that classroom that day because it was a terrible, terrible look.
I'm curious what class is so serious that we're banning ball caps?
It was a political science class.
Political science is supposed to embrace all diversity of views and not your, and you're not your ball cap. I'm disappointed in that.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't. He probably was punishment for me as I did not fare well in that class. I mean, C's get degrees when it comes to political science.
C's get degrees. Who was that made that comment on a Indiana women's basketball broadcast? They were bringing him out to recognize him. He said something like that. It was like, wow, what?
Uh-oh.
Because, I forget who it was. Not important. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Very well.
Let's see. NFL, the Colts, they stink. That's all you can say. They just stink. And it's amazing when they're coming off of a season that was really disappointing, and the talk was Irsay was pissed off, and so when an owner is kind of upset, things usually happen in a different direction. Boy, it's going in the wrong direction, it seems.
But like. Jim, things don't always happen for the better. I don't think that's a way to move anything forward. I think they've got good people in the GM's office and in the head coaching office, and I just let them do their jobs. I think that's the way you do it. Now, there were things about last year that were highly disappointing, and but also perhaps somewhat out of their control. I there's some research they should have probably done on Carson Wentz that they whiffed on, and that really hurt them. But I look back at last year, and what I would have been angry about is the smart teams in the NFL last year. Whatever you think about the efficacy of the vaccine or whatever else, looked at it as a competitive advantage. That was something Nick Saban said. We're getting vaccinated because they're not keeping us out of stuff because we're not vaccinated. So everybody, I'm not sure that every single last player at Alabama got vaccinated, but it was the vast majority. And there were other teams in the NFL that took the same approach, that whether and I'm certainly fully in favor of it. I've gotten, I think, 4 shots now, I think. But my point is, however much you want to turn into something that it's not, in regards to football, it was a competitive advantage. And the Colts failed there. And that's where they should have been upset. But that's over now. I mean, it obviously COVID still is out there, but that as a competitive obstacle is not there as it was in 2021. So you just go back to doing your business. And I'm not sure that they necessarily reacted the best way to what happened last year. And I'm not sure that the reaction to the current start is necessarily the best either. I think you need to have some degree of patience at this point. You've got a new quarterback. You kind of, Jacksonville's kind of been a sort of a pit for them year after year after year. So I don't think that panic is necessarily the right way to go. I think there are issues within their roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I still, I really believe in the people that are in those two positions. And I think if you look at it now, I know I heard and read some stuff about people wanting to move on Frank Reich. And I just don't agree with that at all. I think he's a heck of a football coach, and I think they have a really good guy standing there, and they need to move forward with him.
Speaking of moving on, Mike, one thing that I thought was interesting from the weekend was the Pittsburgh Steelers fans already clamoring for Kenny Pickett. Just some of your thoughts on the Pittsburgh quarterback situation. And admittedly, I've been watching the NFL. I have not watched the Steelers intently, but I thought that was interesting. I mean, it seems like they've already moved on. I don't know if it's because he's a hometown kid, if they just aren't liking what they see from Mitchell Trubisky, but 2 games in and already chanting for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, it's a fantasy, Dustin. They've fallen in love with a fantasy. Kenny Pickett's not ready to be a quarterback in the NFL. It took him 5 years to be a good college quarterback. He was an okay college quarterback for 4 years. He gets the 5th year because of the circumstances that we had, and he becomes a star. Now, so we're supposed to believe that he's going to – okay, so it took him 5 years to be a good college quarterback, or to be fair, a great college quarterback in his final season. It took him 5 years. So we're supposed to believe that he's got NFL figured out in 7 weeks. I mean, that's just a fantasy. Right. The Steelers took the field without T.J. Watt on Saturday, so it affected how they played defensively. And offensively, still not fully trustful of their offensive line. And they tried to win the game 20-13. That was their whole goal. You could see it. I've been watching Mike Tomlin for 15 years, and I know when against certain opponents in certain circumstances, he's trying to win a game 17-14 or 20-13 or whatever. But he's not trying. Like, he doesn't believe he can run it up, or he doesn't believe he can score big, but he believes he can hold the other team to a reasonable number of points. So what happens? They lose 17-14, and 7 of the points were given away on a muffed punt. Now, everybody in Pittsburgh has decided that it's okay for the punt returner, who was a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro in 2020, to let the ball hit him in the face mask on the 20-yard line on a fair catch. Not like trying to field the ball on fair catch on a clear day. And it hits him in the face, and it goes to the opposition on the 20, and they score 3-4 plays later, whatever it was. Pittsburgh, so many Pittsburgh fans have decided not a problem because Kenny Pickett could fix all that. It's ridiculous. I just, I watched that on Sunday, and I heard the boos. They didn't try offensively to attack because they didn't believe they could. Now, whether they're not trustful enough of their offensive line or not trustful enough of Trubisky or whatever it might be, they did not try to score a lot of points in that game. They tried to possess the ball. They tried to not turn it over, and they tried to put up just enough points to win. Now, when that punt was coming to Gunnar Olszewski in the third quarter, they were down at that point. They were down 13-7. So if he fields that punt, they've got the ball in position to go ahead and try to get ahead in the game and, again, fulfill the goal of winning 20-13 or whatever. And instead it drops off his face. And 2-3 plays before that, Cam Sutton was on his knees, and the quarterback, Mac Jones for the Patriots, passed the ball directly at him. Not one of those, you could have had it hit on you real quick, or you tried to reach. No, it was right at him, right in his hands. He's on his knees, so no balance issues, and he bounces off his hands. And it's the idea, that's why he's a defensive back. No, he's a professional athlete. You have to catch that ball. And he failed. And then the third item that really hurt them was a touchdown pass. And Kello Witherspoon had the wide receiver perfectly defended, but didn't track the ball. So a lot of Pittsburgh media analysts said, well, it's okay because it was a tough contested catch. No, if it was contested, it would have been broken up and maybe intercepted because he had the inside position. But he allowed the guy to go, the wide receiver to go, it was Nelson Aguilar, to go up over him and grab the ball. That's not contested. That's failure. So they had to be perfect with the game plan they had. And those 3 plays blew perfection out of the water. Trubisky was not great, but he did what they wanted to do, which was A, not turn over the ball, and B, not get sacked. That's what they asked him to do, and he didn't do those things. So it's Pittsburgh in this case is one, engaging in a fantasy, and two, totally overreacting to what they're seeing.
The NBA is, well, but let's stick with we'll stick with football now. We'll wait till the next segment for that. But how about all these new young quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts? Watching him last night, just looking like a 5-year veteran, and this is his second year.
It's his third year.
Is
I
it
think
his
it's his
third
second year as a fairly regular starter.
Well,
it's
he's looking
interesting
like a
because
veteran, man.
in his rookie year, like, go look it up, man. There are reams written about how he was a failed pick. Reams of copy written about he was a second-round pick, and people were angry that they took him. And now look at what he's doing. He's one of those quarterbacks that's really hard for NFL defenses to deal with. That ability to put, to run, and to be an effective quarterback, but also to run when it's necessary, or when it's or when you're trying to catch the defense off guard. I think he's terrific. And I wrote about 2-3 years ago when we started to see this more and more, Mahomes being able to get out of it. He doesn't go downfield that much with his runs, but he does on occasion. He can really escape. Obviously, Josh Allen in Buffalo. We see it with Russell Wilson going back. He entered the league a decade ago, and he's still got that. It's really hard for NFL defenses to deal with. But what I wrote about then was this constant, this old school idea that if you're a running quarterback, you're going to get hurt. It's complete nonsense. Can you get hurt as a running quarterback escaping the pocket? Sure. But most quarterback injuries, and I quoted some experts and there was some data out there that showed it. Most quarterbacks, when they get hurt, it's because they get hit in the pocket, most often from the blind side, sometimes from the front low into the knee, like happened to Brady in 2008. That's the reality of the quarterback position, is that you're most vulnerable when you're setting up in a pocket trying to throw and somebody comes at you. I mean, Dak Prescott, he didn't get hurt because he can run. He got hurt because he was throwing and there was too much pressure on him, and the guy hit his hand. And it busted up his hand. So now that the NFL has come to realize that was always a ridiculous conceit. And, I look back to the late 90s, early 2000s when Cordell Stewart was a Steeler and everybody was trying to turn him into this pocket passer. It's like, God, the guy's a wideout with an arm. I mean, he can run with the best wideouts in the league, and he's got an arm, and you're trying to turn him into Terry Hanratty. Why? Let him run. It's unbelievable it took the NFL this long to catch up to that concept.
Oh, man, I did not expect to hear Terry Hanratty on today's broadcast. Going back. How about Michael Penix, man? He's kind of shining out of in that Pacific Northwest right now, isn't he?
Yeah, happy for him.
Yes.
He was so good in 2020, just brilliant, and then last year gets hurt. I really enjoyed watching him play with the Hoosiers in 2020, and and it's a shame what happened last season. The injury was just devastating to him and to the team. And it'd be nice if he was doing that still with the Hoosiers, but it is what it is, and he's a wonderful player, and it's great to see him. It was nice to see IU come back on Saturday and pull off the victory in overtime. They obviously still have work to do. The defense needs to be tightened up. 30 points to Western Kentucky is a lot of points, but it's good that they were able to ring up 30 themselves. I think that shows some progress on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. And they'll get tested certainly this week as they head to Cincinnati.
Yes.
Which Cincinnati is just still a good team. Although the times that I have watched them, they have been really self-inflicting.
Yes.
But they're very dangerous. But they made well, they made some really bad mistakes that, well, they cost them the Arkansas game. They would have beaten Arkansas. I keep saying they had at least four penalties that I can remember in the red zone on a particular drive that just killed them. I'm like, golly.
They were dropping balls on Saturday too against Miami, against the Miami Redhawks. They were dropping easy passes. That really uncharacteristic of that program for them to drop. There were at least 3 clear first down length plus passes that were dropped uncontested. So they've got a lot to clean up, and Indiana goes in there. It's a difficult environment. It's a very compact stadium, Nippert Stadium, so it's not going to be easy to play. You don't see many places like that in the big. You certainly don't see any in the Big Ten. But you don't see very many in major college football that are built kind of like a bandbox basketball gym. It can really, they can really feel like they're right on top of you. And they've done, back when I moved to Cincinnati, it didn't matter because there was nobody there to be on top of you. But since they got good under Brian Kelly, they're usually well in excess of 30,000 in a building that holds, I think it can max out somewhere around 38. They're usually, close to capacity now. And I think IU coming to town will probably push it to that, especially if the weather looks as good as it does. I haven't looked in Cincinnati's weather, but it's usually generally close to ours, and we're looking at a pretty nice weekend. So they should have a great crowd, and it'll be tough.
38 can sound just as loud as 68 when they're right there on top of you, as opposed to being spread out. How about this Nebraska job? Who is this going to fit? Who is going to take the chance of that's 5 years ago, maybe, or definitely 10 years ago, people would be crawling on their hands and knees to get to Lincoln. I don't think that's the case right now because of how far down it is, but it's not that far down to where it's still not a jewel.
I think that there are things that they have to fix a little bit. When Nebraska moved to the Big Ten, and it no longer could they say, and this happened to Pitt in Big East basketball as well. Pitt had built a whole apparatus around, okay, so no one here in your town, New York, Philly, DC, the big schools aren't recruiting you, but we're a big school, and we'll take you and we'll bring you back home multiple times a year, plus the tournaments in Madison Square Garden. Isn't that cool? And they had a relative dynasty from about 2002 to 2012, and then they changed to the ACC, and their dynamic changed. And that happened with Nebraska too. In Nebraska's case, it was going to Texas and getting guys saying, we're going to bring you home when we play UT. Won't that be cool to play against those Longhorns that don't want you? All that sort of stuff. And there were other trips obviously down there too. Texas Tech's a little bit far out there, but that's still in the state. TCU, et cetera, and that's not necessarily available to them now. A&M was at the time too. It's not available to them now, so you have to rebuild that. Where do we get guys now? Where do they come from? And it's not to say you can't go into Texas, but you can't promise them the same thing. But now California might be opening up to you a little bit for this player, that player. You've got a wide swath now that you can choose from, and you've just got to find a way to work that. You look at a guy like Lance Leopold at Kansas. I mean, my goodness, what he's doing at Kansas. I mean, Kansas has been the worst program in high major college football over the
worse than Indiana even.
Oh gosh, I mean, Indiana's now Kansas. I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it was around 06 or 08 that Kansas and Missouri both went into their game. Like one was 10-1, the other was 11-0. And that was like the biggest aberration in the history of college football. And like I said, I wish I could remember what year that was. But since then, Kansas has been horrible. They've gone through they've had way more coaches than successful seasons. Let's put it that way. And now they've got Lance Leopold there, and he's, I know it's only 3 games or whatever, but he's shocking everybody. He's been terrific. And there's no reason if he can do it there that he can't go into Nebraska with they have unbelievable fan base. They have their fan base in basketball and in football, just absurdly loyal. I mean, they are so with their program. So, all you have to do is go in there and be successful, and they are totally on board with you. Like I said, you solve the issue of finding where you get guys, build a recruiting apparatus, and Nebraska's right there with Wisconsin. The west of the Mississippi powers. Is Wisconsin technically west? I think it is. But what is now the Western Division, I think that's probably going to go away soon. But what's now the Western Division, I think Nebraska is only a few good recruiting classes and one good coach away from, consistently competing with programs like Nebraska.
We've got to take a break. When we come back, plenty more to talk about, including potential changes in the NBA draft that could have great implications on the college side of things. Beer sales at Assembly Hall, and Amoni Bates, man, bad situation for him. I shouldn't say sad, but bad. We'll see how that goes. But former number one player in America. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Mike DeCourcy and Dustin Schutte right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
The sun is out. Man, Amoni Bates, not only did he have a gun, he had a gun that had the serial number filed off of it.
Yeah, his lawyer said that it wasn't his car, and that's easy enough to prove. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what the value would be in claiming that it wasn't his car if, like, his name's on the owner's card or whatever, or the registration. So we'll see. It's just, for me, the disappointment is in the way his career has progressed from the first time I saw him. I got to find out exactly what year that was. I believe it was between his freshman and sophomore. Freshman and sophomore year of high school that I saw him. And, there just hasn't been a right move made with him since then. It just at no point has the right thing happened with him. And it's a genuine shame.
What is this? Oh, damn. I read an article, too, the other day. I cannot remember where. About a guy who called himself the Reverend or Reverend this or something. It's just bad people that get involved with these kids. Just like what's his name's dad at Louisville, the basketball player that.
Bowen.
Yes. His dad. That's, boy. You get people that involved in. But I wish somebody was throwing money at me. I'd catch it, baby. I'd be like in that The Price is Right. They had that one game where you stood into some kind of glass tube or something, and they just blew money around, and you just had to grab it, catch it. That would be
Dustin,
me, baby.
Are we showing that picture you sent me, or no?
You can show it now. I mean, you can't see it on the radio, so.
Well, I just didn't know if it was meant for the audience.
Oh, no, it can be or it doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter.
Oh, it absolutely.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that handsome young man. I look like Fuller from what's that movie? Home Alone.
That's a fat can of 7-Up.
It is a fat can of 7-Up. Surprise! We had to be on vacation. Surprise! My parents let me have soda.
I'll have to find a funny picture of me.
That's the logo for when Jennifer calls you Soda Pop Schutte.
There you go. I could not find one of me in college. I think they've all been taken down, or I'm not friends with the people that posted them, or something. I don't know.
One of the funniest ones I can remember, though, is my
Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this beautiful Tuesday, September 20th. High atop the 18th fairway, the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us now. And one of the big things that came out, Mike, is the potential and probability of the NBA draft age going back to 18 from 19, which is funny and huge, but funny that it has happened after the transfer portal and after the NIL. And boy, now it's really going to get fun because the guys that are first round draft picks, they're not likely to stay in college. And then the guys in the second round, that upper half, they probably may not have a decision to make. The bottom half definitely will have a decision to make, but it's going to change the face of college a little bit.
Well, I think it's first important to say that this hasn't happened yet, and it's still
right.
We were given to believe around 2019 that this was a certainty, and ultimately what happened was as they got into negotiating it, the players weren't getting enough in return for giving up something that they thought that that protected their current jobs. Adrian Wojnarowski said in a tweet last night, it will be a significant part of the CBA discussions, but nothing has advanced on the elimination of that rule. And so, and he said if it does happen, it'll happen several years from now because teams have traded draft picks under the assumption that the current rule would be in place. And so basically what he's saying in saying that is that if you eliminate that rule, you are now making draft picks less valuable. That's simply the reality of it. Because you go from drafting players who have proven themselves in some degree, some way, shape, or form, whether it's in the G League, for the Ignite program, whether it's overseas, we don't get that much anymore, but the option obviously still exists, whether it's in college. Those picks are much more valuable in the current landscape than they are in a landscape where a high school kid can enter with very little training, very little having been proven. Amani Bates, you mentioned him before we went into the break, that Bates is a young man who would have been a very high pick when he became eligible for the draft based on pure raw talent. They went into college and showed he's not ready. I mean, he wasn't ready for college. How is he going to be ready for the Indiana Pacers? And not that necessarily they would take him because maybe we'll give them the benefit of the doubt of being smarter than that. But how's he going to handle playing against the Indiana Pacers, let's say, if he can't handle playing against East Carolina? I wrote a piece and I retweeted it with Woj's take on it, on this, that I wrote in 2018 about how great the age limit rule has been for the NBA, let alone college basketball. What it's done for college basketball by putting players like Derrick Rose and Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis and Zion Williamson on the college stage. It's been tremendous for the NBA. None of the I've talked to multiple NBA scouts / executives or player executives over the years. None of them want this rule to go away. Makes their job 100 times harder. Oh, here's a high school kid playing against 5'8" guys. How good is he? I mean, that's just not the ideal situation. Fran Fraschilla said in that article, the great ESPN analyst said in that article, that's why baseball drafts 40 rounds, because they're going to miss, 2/3 of the time now because you're drafting high school kids. You don't know how they're going to develop. But you put somebody on a stage like college basketball, where you're playing against high-level opposition, talented young people that are being high-level coached by people like, a lot of the John Calipari, Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Mike Bray, whoever. That's a different deal than a high school game. where it's just got, young, obviously a lot of them are going to prep schools now, but some of those are really well coached, like Montverde down in Florida. And some of them aren't coached at all. Just guys that, that are in the right place at the right time and can't coach at all. So it's just not the same thing. So I'm very hopeful always that the NBA will come to its senses and realize that they're damaging their own business by moving in that direction. I think that the Players Association has always been since Adam Silver started pushing in this direction about 2017, 2018, the Players Association stood and said, it's not really going to help us. So why do we want to do that? They shouldn't have to be, like the guardians of the game. I mean, that should be Silver's job. And I do not understand at all his approach. I never have since he turned at one point. Don't forget, at one point, Adam Silver was an advocate of a 20-year age limit as associate commissioner, and I believe it for a period of time as commissioner of the league, was an advocate of upping the age limit. And now he's pushing eliminating it altogether. Make no mistake, putting it 18 is eliminating it altogether.
So what's interesting to me, Mike, is for the longest time, we've seen a lot of people, whether it's in the media, sometimes college basketball coaches, it just depends on, who you're listening to, what you're watching, have been adamant against the one and done, at least in my memories. Do you think it's more of this perception, an old school perception, that if you eliminate the one and done, you'll have those kids who are ready for the NBA jump to the NBA draft, and then you'll have more of the guys stick around for 3 or 4 years? Because we were talking.
You want to talk about fantasies?
Right.
I mean, it's like Trey Young. Okay. So Trey Young coming out of high school, I think he was the 25th or 30th player, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. I'm not even sure. I'd have to look it up whether he was a McDonald's All-American. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But he comes out of college, out of high school, and he was widely recruited. I think Kentucky wanted him, but they didn't get him, and he goes to Oklahoma because it's close to home. Plays for Lon for a year. He didn't need a second year of college at all. Okay, now we see what he's got. You couldn't see it against high school guys. Not that he wasn't out there doing those things, but they didn't look that impressive, again, because they're high school guys. But then he comes into the Big 12, starts doing that stuff. It's like, wow, he's really something. And let's go get him. And so that guy's still going. So now you'll get the guys who go out of high school because they're highly rated by the recruiting analysts, and that that has been somewhat hit or miss. I mean, Skal Labissiere, number 1, number 2 player in his class in 2015. By the end of his freshman year, clearly needed a second year, but his economic circumstances dictated that he needed to be a professional. That was pre-NIL, obviously. And so he gets taken around 27th or 28th, has 3-4 years of not great NBA experience, and then he's gone from the league. That's not helping anybody. It's, I was happy for Skal that he was able to get some money, but in the current environment, Skal now could make money in the way that other players are doing, make NIL money, and so then there wouldn't be that desperation. And then after it showed, his freshman year showed that he wasn't ready. He's a talented kid, but he wasn't ready. Maybe he goes a second year and gets ready. And then he lasts in the league and makes $150 million. I mean, that stuff happened. It's happened many times in college, in basketball over the years with athletes who went through college. Kenyon Martin, when I covered Kenyon Martin, after his sophomore year, people were pushing him to go pro. He said no. After his junior year, I asked him, you think, you think you'll be here next year? I was in the locker room after they lost their NCAA tournament game. And he said, where else would I go? He probably would have been 15th, 16th, 18th, 20th player taken in his junior year. Instead, he stays his senior year. He becomes the number 1 overall player taken. Making that decision probably made him conservatively $100 million because he wasn't ready, and then he was.
Wow. I mean, that's staggering, and there is no other story that puts it in perspective better than that. We're such a want it now society. I gotta have it now. But really, and I asked this question earlier, how many true one and dones are there?
Yeah, I think the number's higher now than it used to be. And so, this year was a strange year. I don't know exactly what the motivation was, because we had backtracked a little bit from guys jumping into the draft just to do it because of the first year of NIL. People said, hey, I can get ready and I can get paid both at the same time. Whereas before it was a choice. So we didn't have that many in 21. Yet you had examples like Ayo Dosunmu, who, although he did not become a first-round pick, he should have been. Some teams really blew it on him. But he became a really significant player in his first year, and he wouldn't have been if he bounces out of college after his sophomore year when he's only shooting 31, 32, 33%. He comes back, he shoots over 40, and then he's a regular member of the Bulls rotation as a rookie. He's going to be able to sign for a significant amount of money because he got ready. That's the difference. So this year we had the two kids from Michigan. Highly disappointing that they did what they did, again, because they didn't have to with NIL. Trevor Keels from Duke, another player who could have used another year. You should never be going as a first-round potential player as into the second round in today's environment. That's a huge mistake. But we'll see lots of those and lots more of blown draft picks if we get rid of the age limit altogether. And again, that doesn't help the young people. It doesn't help the teams. It doesn't help the sport. The idea of an 18-year age limit in the current environment would damage the sport at all three levels, much in the way that it did from 1995 to 2006. Game's popularity went down, again, at all three levels. You put this rule in place, and now people are like, if you remember the scene, I don't know if you saw it on the internet, the night of the 2019 NBA draft, the marketing front office for the New Orleans Pelicans, not on the night of the draft, but the night of the lottery, when the Pels won the lottery, and how the people in the Pelicans front office were going berserk because they were going to get Zion. Doesn't happen in an age, without the age limit, because nobody knows the players. In 2000, the year I covered Kenyon Martin's draft up in Minneapolis, they used to. I haven't covered the draft in a while, but they used to have these round tables. They put a player at a big round table like they do at Big Ten Media Day, or used to, before the pandemic, so we couldn't be as close. But they put the players around at a table, and then all the media would sort of bounce in and out, sit down with the player, ask some questions, and then go ask some questions of another player. So they have that, and I'm there for Kenyon Martin. And then after it's all over, I'm walking down the hall behind Darius Miles. And I said to myself, Darius Miles is going to be one of the top 5 players taken in the draft tomorrow. And I'm one of about 1,200 people in America who has seen him play. How can that be good for the game? How can that be good for the business of the game? And as it turned out, Darius had a good year or two, but was pretty much a bust. I think he was the number 2 or 3 overall player taken. It's pretty much a bust. There are lots of those stories in the preps to pros era. There are only, 3, 4 LeBron, Kobe, Kevin Garnett stories.
Right. Speaking of which, Bronny James, I keep seeing something. I'm like, if I missed something, is he a first round draft pick?
I will confess to not having seen him play, but I haven't either. Yeah. Every analysis that I have seen of him is that he's basically a 4-star level player. Now, can you become a NBA first round pick as a 4-star level player? Yes, but not without becoming a first round pick, which would usually mean playing in college or in the Ignite program and excelling.
Yeah, lots of stuff with NIL, with the G League, with Europe. There's just a thousand different directions now for guys to go, and it's hard to keep up with. What's up with you that you have to keep up with next?
I'm working on a piece about what we
that you can't tell us about. I know.
Yeah, I'm working on a piece about what we talked about at the Open. With is it smart to throw your first round draft pick onto the field as a opening day starter or rookie year starter? How there had been a sort of a policy or a belief in the NFL that if you cannot do that, that it's prudent. And we've seen more and more teams throw their guy out there. So what's this? What's the success rate of that? Does it work? Does it not work? Obviously we've had some. There are Peyton Mannings out there that are savants. Andrew Luck would be another. RG3 had a great rookie year until he maybe there was some questions about the way that season ended for him, and obviously did not end up having a great career. But there are guys who have special abilities, but it's not always the case. And I'm a believer that if you can learn the game, I mean, you don't take a surgeon out of science class and hand them a potential surgeon out of science. He was great in biochem as a senior in college, so let's give him a scalpel and have him go to work. I mean, he's got to be trained, right? Well, right. People think that sports isn't that sophisticated. Are you kidding me? What do you think they're doing sleeping in their offices that's what their whole job as an NFL head coach is, to try to make your life as a young rookie NFL quarterback miserable. That's what they're out there to do. And some people believe that failure is a progenitor of success. I think that's true in certain businesses, certain industries, because you get taught, you're failed. Like I failed in my first job to a large degree. And that taught me, I got to work harder. I got to work smarter. I got to listen more, whatever. But so much of athletics is confidence. So much of athletic success is confidence. And some guys who have that confidence torn down never are able to rebuild it.
I think that's what made. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that's what I thought about Peyton Manning. I don't know what the assessment is from the mentality standpoint, but he threw. Does he still own the record for most interceptions for a rookie quarterback or something like that? Like, there are probably not very many players who could recover from that, from the confidence standpoint. It'd be interesting too, Mike, not to tell you how to write your story, but I'm interested to see if there's a difference between guys who came in the rookie years in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when it wasn't as pass heavy. You could rely a little bit more on the run game. That'll be really interesting read on that success rate. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's one of the reasons why the Steelers. That's one of the reasons why Steelers fans are engaging in this fantasy, is because Ben Roethlisberger, who was not named opening day starter, came in game 2 because I believe it was game 2 because Tommy Maddox got hurt. And he was behind a massive, tremendous offensive line and equipped with a great defense that was mature and smart and really successful. And he had Jerome Bettis behind him. And a lot of his rookie year was just, here, Jerome, take the ball. Here, right. Jerome, take the ball. And that's not their current circumstance, but they want to believe that because Ben did it, anybody can.
Yeah.
Mike, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you each and every week, brother. We look forward to it, and I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. That we looked at the weather, how crazy it's going to be. 90 today, 95 tomorrow, which that's as hot as I remember a forecasted day this summer. And then the following day, 72, the following day, 68. I'm like, welcome to Indiana, baby.
That's awesome. I can't wait for the fall weather. That'll be good.
Well, it's going to be here this weekend, so get ready for it. But appreciate you, brother. I thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
They're great. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News joining us here as he does each Tuesday. We're very fortunate to get to talk to him. Brought to you by our great friends from Barbara Pop Real Estate Services down in southern Indiana, the Louisville area, Floyd Clark, Harrison County, Scott County, all those areas. Looking for a home, they have served that area for 3 decades and will be the ones to get you into the home you want without question. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda. Oh, do, 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 do.
Excuse me. All right, this will be a shorter segment.
I need a wooder.
A wooder?
A what?
A wooder. Water.
Stinky, stinky. Gee whiz. I've got to go to Minneapolis. That's in October. Oh, sheesh. Las Vegas, Kansas. Freaking 4 trips I got to freaking plan. I'm out of coffee, but I'm not getting more. Oh, hey, I forgot. I got to make sure I mention Nathan. Hope you're still on with us, man. Down in Mitchell. Give him a shout out. Chef JD. Chef JD, if you can hear me. Oh, my God. I brought some pork chops. It was a week ago from last Friday. Made them the other night. Holy crap. First of all, they're a big old butterfly. There was like, each one was like 2 pork chops. I can't believe how tender they were. I mean, they vacuum seal. I got to remember that. That is amazing. They vacuum seal your meat, John, if you want them to.
Oh, wow.
And then you freeze it. I mean, that's good stuff there.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Remax Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at cheryl@indiehomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@indiehomepros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate you so much. Brought to you by our good friends from Feast Market and Cellar, located right next door to Southern Stone Restaurant, where Inside Indiana is held each Wednesday night at 7:05 with Don Fisher and Tom Allen. But Feast, of course, has an unbelievable array of fine wines with a sommelier on staff. An incredible food lineup. Stop by. It's located right next door to Southern Stone. Welcome back. Dustin Schutte from outsider.com with me. So a lot to talk about. We've had a lot of things to get going on today. Beer sales at Assembly Hall. That's going to be happening. I don't. They haven't had any problems. They've gone through. And Scott Dolson, the IUAD, has said their incidents have gone down, actually.
That's usually the case because you don't.
Well, you're not having to pound them down in the parking lot.
Exactly.
Which is what people do, and it screws. I don't see few people just sitting there pounding them down in the stadium. You want to watch the game.
You want to watch the game. They're usually a little bit pricier. So you're not going to buy as many. It's a walk.
It's a walk.
You're probably, if you're out at the concession stand, to be honest, you're probably also grabbing some food rather than just a beer. So I think there's a lot of different factors that are included, but the biggest thing is correct on what you just said, Jim. It's people are not standing out and chugging 3 beers before they go into the game or taking a couple shots before they go into the game. And that makes a world of difference. You can have a couple beers in the parking lot. You can travel inside and know you can get another beer or 2 in the game. The other thing is if you're drinking in the game, you want to watch the game. And I mean, they say you don't buy beer, you rent it, right? So you're going to be making a lot of trips if you drink too much.
Definitely, probably no. Well, I think they usually cut off at most places after the third
quarter. Yep.
But they wouldn't have to do that at Memorial Stadium because you leave your seat in the fourth quarter at Memorial Stadium, you're going to miss the end of the game, and it's going to be exciting. Hey, make sure you go to thehoosier.com. If you don't have a subscription there, you really should. It's only $8 a month for complete coverage of Indiana recruiting and news. Right now, they've got the season previews of the entire basketball team going up. Kyler Staley putting up today. I think Jordan Geronimo went up, and all kinds of other things, as well as getting on the boards and chatting with the peeps. Let's see, make sure I took that off. Chef JD says hi over at BB's Market. I wonder what he's whipping up today. When I'm not there, I got to be honest with you. I wish I did the show there every day.
I do too.
Because every day I wake up hungry. And if I was doing the show there, I'm like, perfect. Problem solved. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing any good comments. Oh, I know what I'm going to talk about. Wow. Minnesota is a 2-point favorite at Michigan State.
That's not surprising.
Yeah,
Michigan State did not look good again. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, Minnesota is a really good football team.
I know, and I know, and I had them in my mind last week on that parlay, and you have no idea how badly I regret that. That would have having them instead of Iowa. We'd be just celebrating. I would just be celebrating.
To me, that was the easiest lock of the week because.
Well, thanks for telling me.
I did tell you. I said it on this show. Colorado is the worst team in Power 5. I mean, they are atrocious.
You know why I took
that 27.5 points? Because Iowa hadn't scored 23 points in their first 2 games combined.
Well, because Jeffrey said that. Yeah. All I needed was 1 score out of Nevada. 1. Or quit letting Iowa score.
Or call the game at halftime.
I was begging for that.
Yeah.
I was Googling. You have no idea. I was Googling nonstop. What does it take for a college game to be complete? When can it be called and it count?
What was the answer? Because I don't know if I know.
I don't know. I never found it.
My guess would be that both sides have to come to an agreement.
Yes, and there's no way that Iowa would have taken an L.
No, well, they wouldn't have taken a non-decision. If Nevada doesn't complete the full game, I wonder if they get the full allotment of their paycheck that they signed up for.
Oh, yeah, yes.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of different moving parts.
That would not have. Yeah, they would have been paid. Thank God the game took 7 hours.
I'm just telling you,
I understand, but hey, I'm looking out for my own interest here.
Hey, I look. You and I need the money more than Iowa or Nevada. That's for damn sure. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I guarantee you, if there was a way, if Nevada said, you know what, we're not winning this game, we're done after 3 quarters, I guarantee you Iowa would have found a way to only pay 3/4 of the allotted fund. I don't know what the contracts say, but if there's a way to finagle, these colleges are very greedy, and they would have done it.
Froggy from Little Rascals.
Ooh. Look at the.
Didn't Froggy talk like this?
He did talk like that. That was a terrible impression.
You
had a good one. Mine was terrible. Yours was much better.
Let's see. Well, I wish I'd have caught that earlier. There's some coffee spitting going on. Maybe you should do the show as Froggy, or I could do it. You'd have to do it as Froggy.
I would not. Oh boy, that would be rough.
Forrest is heading to Bloomington 2 weeks from today for a very special homecoming. Congratulations to him. Tanis says the Pacers take older, more ready-to-go guys that stay away from the ones that have any red flags, and Bates was a flashing light. Also says Adam Silver is greedy. Can't say anything nice about him at all. Yeah, how about this IU Cincinnati line? It started out, I thought it started at like 11.5.
John said it started out at what, 8? 7, 8?
Yeah, and that's actually according to our friend Chronic Hoosier, who posted that originally, who is in our green room right
out
now.
Of here. 7 to 17. That's one of the biggest jumps in my memory.
22 points. Wow.
That's not 22 points. That's 10.
Now with ESPN at 22 is what he's saying.
Oh, what?
So that would be a two. That would be a 2 touchdown jump.
I don't go by ESPN. You have to go by Vegas.
Well,
Vegas knows what the hell they're doing.
What I see currently is Cincinnati minus 16.5. So it continues to climb.
Here's what I don't understand, is that
if it was
last
at
year's
17.
Indiana-Cincinnati game was a good game.
They're not gauging it on that. They're gauging on what they've seen from Indiana and what they've seen from Cincinnati.
And that's true, but both teams are different than last year. And Cincinnati shouldn't be as good as they were when they went to the college football playoff last season, obviously.
Well, they are as good if they don't make the mistakes. They've made mistakes, but they have been uber talented offensively.
This is all an algorithm, and it's also based on where the money's coming from. So it's not like they're just saying, we think Cincinnati's going to win this game by 17. I mean, it is very detailed. It's not just some guy in a room smoking a cigarette saying, I think 2 touchdowns for Cincinnati.
No, they know it. It's eerie how good they are. Hey, guess how many points Nevada's getting this week?
Who do they play?
24. The same amount doesn't even matter. It's the same amount of points they were given
against Iowa.
Okay. No, yeah, exactly. Look at this. This week they're playing at Air Force and they're getting 24 points. Last week they played at Iowa and got 24 points. Gosh, dang it.
How about that?
That game would just that one's gonna. Although the Wisconsin hurt me way more. I'm looking for this Indiana game. There we go. 16.5.
Mm-hmm.
With the over-under at 60.
So that
means they're expecting Cincinnati to score some points.
That would be like a 37-23 type of game.
Yep. I mean, break. We got to take a quick break here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the WOW Club. Metalworks, located just off the square on 6th Street in Bloomington, catty corner to Cabello, former Function Brewing Company. Metalworks is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art, alongside a desire to be actively involved in the community. Check them out. And you can get that at all of the WOW locations as well. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Hey, this is John.
Hey, the reason I say break, it doesn't go over the radio.
I'm kidding.
I muted on my side to where it doesn't go through on the one end of it. It goes through on YouTube, but not on the audio end of it.
I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't know that either.
It's because I have you can't see it on my screen, but there's 2 different ways it's fed in. That's why I do it sometimes. I wouldn't do it if I knew it was going out over the radio feed.
What the hell is that?
That's my printer.
Oh, I was looking down the whole time. I didn't even see you, and I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's my dinosaur, my line printer over here, running reports.
That sounds like when I was in high school and we had what do they call it, a Duquesne? The thing with big drum, it would spin.
Oh, yeah. Lineotype, or what the fuck was that?
I thought it was a Duquesne or something like that. I remember. Hey, Jimmy, go. I was in AV. Hey, Jimmy, go print these off. You had to put the main copy on that big drum, and it would just roll.
Come back with bluish purple hands for the rest of the week.
I sound like I grew up in the freaking 40s or something.
You go down to the creek and get a pail of water so you could wash off your slate chalkboards.
Now, my dad's relatives were exactly that. When we'd go visit, they had a pail of water on the counter that they got from the spring out of the creek, and there was a long-handled gourd hanging above it that had been cut off halfway so you could drink. And that is no shit.
Yep.
That's a fact.
My great-grandmother in Kentucky used to have a suspension bridge you'd have to cross to get to her cabin.
Ha!
And she
they didn't have
smoked a corncob pipe, and she didn't need an outhouse. She just do it standing up.
My grandmother dipped snuff. But when we'd go down there to visit, they didn't have a damn bridge. We had to drive through the creek and hope that it wasn't up too high.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. It was hilarious.
All right, here we go.
244040 or visit eaglepoint.com. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. An exceptional golf and dining experience.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday, September 20th, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, the #1 Honda dealer around. There's no place you need to go for a new or used vehicle. It doesn't matter what kind you're wanting because they've got it all, but Andy Moore Honda will get you set up. Joined now by Chronic Hoosier. How's it going, man? I saw that you guys had a new, it seemed like it was new. Mind your banners out. Are you...
You know, we have kind of
Zach and Dustin.
We've kind of slid Dustin into that seat here. One, availability wise, two, you know, they like to get a company man in there and plug both sides of the HT, the Indy Star thing. But more than anything, Zach and I have just had a hell of a time linking up together this semester. Zach now for the first time juggling multiple babies under his roof. So we're still working on getting together. I don't think it's done for good, but it's just a lot easier for those guys, you know, sitting in the press box after they filed the reports just to burn one real quick and get some multimedia content out. But no, Dustin's doing a killer job. Yes, by burn a pod. By burn a pod. I'm not going to throw the guys under the bus like that.
I love that. Burn a pod. I love that. Hey, let's go burn a pod. I like that. Still sounds, still has the good sound to it. Indiana
sounds dangerous.
Three, yeah, making some bad decisions. Indiana football 3-0, where they certainly wanted to be. At the start of the season, I was absolutely not sure if they would be 2-1 or if they could be 3-0 at this point, but they have made it. They've done it in exciting fashion. Also in a fashion where each week I'm not still last week in the prediction column that I had to write for the Hoosier.com, I said that I don't know what this offense is. I don't know what their identity is yet. And this should be the game that we find out. Well, we kind of did and kind of did. So I still am not completely for sure, but this game should undoubtedly show us what they have, what they're able to do. It's 4 games in. It's time. Like the buffer guy. It's time. But it's time for them to be where they need, not end of game or end of season style, but 4 games in, man, that's enough. It's time to buck up. And they're playing a team that is very capable of being very good, but they're also capable of being beaten. So it's going to be an interesting Saturday, Chronic.
No doubt. Early season is always really tough to divine, what type of a team you're looking at. The quality of the matchups isn't necessarily representative of what you're going to see on balance of the season. Everybody's trying to figure out their role, trying to get into a groove. And usually by the time you get out of September, you've got a pretty good sense of what this ball club's about. And with this Indiana team, I'm still shaking my head trying to figure out what to make. We've seen 3 games in now. We've seen 3 really effective halves of football. We've seen 3 really abysmal halves of football spread out evenly among those 3 games. I think it's safe to say this Indiana team is rife with flaws on both sides of the ball. And at the same time, in the same breath, I'm going to tell you, especially this Saturday, you saw every phase of the game, offense, defense, and special teams make game-winning plays, importantly when it mattered most. It was certainly an improbable victory. It was certainly maddeningly close. We said it last week. I felt like Indiana's defense was going to get probably its stiffest test to this point, and I think that was pretty accurate. I didn't think Indiana's defense could be as porous as we saw. I didn't think some of the assignments could be blown as wide open as what we saw. But in typical Tom Allen defensive fashion, they were able to withstand the blows and kept themselves in a position to win. So, there's no style points, at least not in this day and age. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much confidence it really inspires going into Cincinnati, other than the fact we have witnessed an Indiana team that 3 times in a row now has consecutively found a way to win the game when it matters most. And, if there's any metric that's most important in football, and Lord knows there's a bucket load of stats, it's the ultimate outcome at the end of the game that matters most. And in that regard, Indiana has been remarkably successful so far this season.
Kind of a unique thing, Dustin, real quick. That Zach, I think, was one of the first to send this out on a tweet, but it's kind of funny. Indiana, Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, a combined 15-0 to start the football season.
Yeah.
And Kansas and Indiana are 2 of the historically worst teams in Division I football. Duke has not been a ton better. North Carolina, yeah. But kind of funny that the basketball blue bloods are trying to get the other side going.
Who knew Calipari's words could spark that much?
Oh boy,
that much of a response across the nation.
He pissed every school off.
Yeah, no kidding. One of the things that you mentioned, Chronic, was the ultimate statistic is the wins and losses. And the things that's been frustrating is that the Indiana's gotten off to poor starts. They haven't played it well offensively through the first half of their first 3 games. But I think what you have to give credit to this coaching staff for is when you see such a stark difference between the first half and the second half, that's a team that's making adjustments. That's a coaching staff that is assessing what's happened through the first half. And they're able to make adjustments. So I get a lot of credit to Tom Allen and the staff. I do think that they have to be much better in the first half, find a way to score some points, get some stops in the first half against Cincinnati. But I think
they did last year and had that going, so they were up in front of them.
I think they have the ability, but I mean, again, it's been ugly through first half, but I think at the same time, you have to give a lot of credit to the staff to be able to make those adjustments at halftime. And like you said, get out of there with 3 wins.
Yeah, and I think where the frustration lies, at least personally, IU's been favored in each one of the 3 games so far. And what we've seen in the 3 first halves is a team that doesn't even look like they should be 2-point dog, quite frankly. I mean, just pretty thoroughly outmatched across the board. Now, 100% agree with you that it's a wildly encouraging sign to see the way that the staff's been able to adjust, the way that the team has been able to remain engaged and competitive throughout, and put themselves in a position to win. And I thought that was huge, not just to get the W last weekend, but for every facet of the game to have a major role in making that happen. The experiences like that, I think, can pay dividends throughout the season and really allow a level of synergy to build that doesn't necessarily occur when it's just the offense or just the defense that's able to make those plays. So, I think the key now is you've got to cash in on those returns. They've reached the point of the schedule now, maybe with the exception of Nebraska. I don't think this Indiana team has the luxury of taking, quite frankly, any opponent lightly at this point, not to mention a conference opponent. But the degree of difficulty is going to start climbing exponentially from this point forward. First road test of the season at Cincinnati. This is a massive opportunity, in my estimation, for this team to really show the country who they are, what they're about, what they're capable of, but to position themselves to just be 2 games away from bowl eligibility. And you don't want to throw away any of those games between now and the end of the year, no matter what the line may be, no matter what the analytics tell you. You've got to find a way to compete throughout. But for them to have that much of a cushion going through the season, I think gives Indiana an ability to play with house money that, quite frankly, they haven't enjoyed that frequently in my lifetime, to be totally honest. But I think that allows them to play a lot looser, a lot freer, and hopefully a little bit more competitively down the stretch. But this is one of those that I think is going to be extraordinarily difficult for Indiana. I think some of the errors, some of the miscues that we've seen up to this point, where they've been able to withstand them against lesser opposition, the margin for error is essentially 0 for this Indiana team on the road right now, as far as I can tell. And it's going to be a big test for the staff, for the players, to get themselves focused and to get a game plan together that they're going to be able to execute. And I think that's the thing that we've seen a lot of in the first half. It's really hard to judge the game plan when the execution is just so abysmal. And whatever they're doing at halftime to clean some of that stuff up, maybe we can start the game with some of those focuses in place, and hopefully not have that letdown. Because quite frankly, a team as powerful as Cincinnati, it's going to be really difficult to dig out of a hole if you find yourself in one in the first or the second quarter.
Absolutely. And we've seen that both Indiana and Cincinnati's been a second half team, last year, and I've seen this year. Indiana has done well with not making a ton of self-inflicting mistakes, but they've hurt themselves with poor tackling, a non-existent running game, and those things. And I don't know if they can get all of that cleaned up in that quickly, because the competition is way ramped up. Cincinnati, they have to win this game for them as well. They can't afford to lose to Indiana if they want their season to be what it wants to be. Indiana could afford to lose the loss, I guess you could say, but what it would do with a win, I don't want to say it would guarantee bowl eligibility, because that would be dumb to say, but it, like you mentioned, you put yourself in a position to be 2 games away from that. Man, the confidence alone with that, then going to Nebraska, a game that you potentially, if you beat Cincinnati, you're going to be favored at Nebraska. How crazy is that? But that's putting the cart before the horse. But Indiana has got to get the tackling under doing a lot better job of it. They gave up way too much chunk yardage in the second half to a Western Kentucky team. It's not that good. I mean, they had runs of 59, 39, some big runs. And although Cincinnati's more of a passing team, it's going to be a busy day for the Indiana defense.
Yeah, Indiana just allowed 6 yards per rushing attempt against Western Kentucky. 7.3 yards per passing attempt, combined average yardage of 6.7 yards per play. There's really no opponent in the world that Indiana is going to see for the rest of the season that's going to be anywhere close to competitive if you allow those kind of numbers on the defensive end. And as much as the offensive line has been maligned for some of their shortcomings, quite frankly, the defensive line is rapidly approaching that level of panic, at least for me, as you head into the Big Ten season after this week. You cannot afford to surrender both sides of the trenches like that. You just can't. You will not find yourself competitive in any game against any opponent for the remainder of the season. So on the road against probably your best opponent to date is going to be a great time to show that there is some improvement that can be had there, because otherwise it's going to get extraordinarily difficult for Indiana to find points and wins going forward for the remainder of the season.
One of the things that I think is interesting about this game, and people disagree with me, I don't know. When you look at what Indiana did on the ground last year and was very, couldn't establish anything on the ground. They have not been able to do that this year either. However, I thought that against Western Kentucky, 120 yards, 35 carries, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.4 yards. To me, not great, but at the same time, I do think that's if they could sustain a level like that throughout the season, I think you have a good chance of bowl eligibility. Because it presents at least the defense they're going to have to be honest, be a little bit more honest against the run. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think it's got to be a lot better on the ground?
No, I think, Walt Bell's effectively acknowledged as much. They have to establish it. Whether it's effective or not, they have to establish it. They have to show it. Just because, with the pass coverage being what it is right now, Bazelak's done a really good job, in my estimation, of keeping the internal clock really dialed in, recognizing when to get rid of the ball, when the play's not there. We saw it in overtime, and I thought that was going to be terminal, but for Campbell's just clutch leg at the end. There's going to be a number of situations where backward is not an option for this team, and they were able to sustain it. They were able to survive it this week. But just the ability to avoid taking negative yards on a play, with the liabilities you already have in the rushing game and pass protect, it's imperative that he keeps that up. So as just not to do any more damage. It's one thing to give the ball back immediately. It's another thing to gift defenses with field position advantages, with interceptions, with fumbles on down the line. As I guess encouraging as those signs have been up to this point, it's going to put a premium on the quarterback play. It's going to put a premium on the line play, quite honestly. Even if it's not crazy effective, I'm not asking for 6 yards a carry.
Right.
Can you break 2.5 against top level competition? Because honestly, if you're not breaking 2.5, you're not averaging enough plays to advance the chains. And if you can't do that on average, you are by definition an ineffective offense. So I think the running game is going to be an essential part of that. But I think it's also going to be a very, very fine balancing act between getting the ball in the air, where Bazelak seems to be most effective, where the offense seems most effective, versus running those plays that at least keep the defenses honest.
How about the point spread jump? It's as about as big a jump as I can of something I was following, going from the original 7 that you posted out up to, is it 16.5 now? I think I just checked.
I had someone point out to me that line the open line that's showing. I use Vegas Insider, shows consensus lines, shows individual lines. that line may have been the opening line from this summer. They put an early line out on certain marquee games months ahead of the season, and that actually makes a whole lot more sense. Why
It's
that would
still,
show as the open.
It's still a high number. I'm like, wow, that's surprising to me.
Where is it currently sitting right now?
16.5, I believe.
Yeah, my work network cuts off gambling sites. They're blacklisted, so I have to switch over to my cell service when I'm here at work and get off the company Wi-Fi.
16.5 with the over under 54. So
that's still a pretty big jump. If it opened at 13.5 this week, if that was the opening line after week 3 games had concluded, that's still a pretty sizable line movement, honestly. And as you guys were talking about right before I jumped on, part of that's algorithmic. Part of that is just where the money's moving, quite honestly. And when you step back objectively, how many points is this offense capable of on the road, and how many points can this defense give up in a hostile environment? It seems fairly reasonable right now.
It's not big, but Mike DeCourcy was on with us, and he said just the design of it. It's only like 30-something thousand, but it's like a bandbox kind of a place. They're right on top of you.
Yeah, and this is going to be the first opportunity for this team to go on the road, and you've got a lot of new faces on this roster that have not experienced that just yet. So it'll be curious to see how they respond to that type of environment. Again, it's they have to minimize the unforced errors. I think turnover margin probably decides this game.
We'll certainly find out. Chronic Hoosier, thank you, sir. Look forward to it. We'll find out on Saturday night.
Can't wait. We'll catch you guys next week.
You betcha. Chronic Hoosier joining us, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Always great deals for new and used vehicles waiting for you. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as we'll finish it out. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com is with me. I'm Jim Coyle. I'll be right back after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington, Notre Dame and UNC is a pick'em.
I'm not surprised. It shouldn't be, but Notre Dame hasn't looked good in the first couple of weeks. So
no, they have not.
Where's it at? Where's it played out?
North Carolina, but Notre Dame and North Carolina being a pick'em. If you'd have told me that before the season, jeez.
Well, I thought Notre Dame looked actually pretty good against Ohio State, and then it's just fallen off a cliff.
What about isn't SMU pretty decent?
Yeah.
No,
I played well against Maryland. I know they lost, but I picked them to beat them.
I did too.
What was that score?
34-27, I believe.
They're playing TCU, and they're getting 1.5 at home.
SMU is?
Yeah.
Whew, okay.
And the over and under is 70. Guts go. There she is. What is that? Oh, Notre Dame's offense doesn't look like it can score with UNC. Is their defense decent?
Who? I'm not paying attention at the moment.
Who'd you say was the most terrible team Colorado or Colorado State?
Yeah, Colorado.
They're both bad.
Yeah.
UCLA is getting 21.5 points at Colorado.
I'd probably take that. I'd probably take UCLA.
All right, here we go.
We should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. From the high atop the 18th fairway, the golf club at Eagle Point Studios, Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com with me, Jim Coyle here. Looking forward to watching this weather roller coaster this week, as it is going to go from 90 to 95 down to the 60s 2 days later. That's nuts. Ross says he did not realize that Nippert Stadium was built in 1915.
Wow.
And it has had 8 renovations over the years. That's a long time ago.
That is. That's over 100 years.
I was talking about Notre Dame and UNC off. 5 Left doesn't believe Notre Dame's offense looks like it could score against
I would
UNC,
probably agree.
but he says their defense isn't good. They gave up 63 points to App State. Right. So that's a conundrum.
So we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do.
So what are you saying, 5 Lefts?
Stay the hell away from the game is what he's saying.
Yeah, I did not. That's not one I will.
Don't bet the point total. Don't bet the money line. Don't bet anything.
Yeah, I'm going to have fun this week. I think I'm going to bet a couple of different parlays, small bets, just for the fun of it.
Yeah. Don't include a Big Ten. Don't include a Big Ten West team. That's my advice to you.
Except for Minnesota.
Oh boy, you're playing with fire to get hurt by another. You're 0-2 with the Big Ten West picks.
Yeah, I know. I should have taken them last week.
You should have.
Should have taken them. Hey, and we need to start on Fridays. There needs to be certain picks
that are
each
locks.
of us pick. Well, that's something that we have to keep count of. Now that it's dang it. We'll start this week regardless and keep track. I wish we'd have kept track of the first 3.
Maybe we do it with just Big Ten games, like conference games.
Yeah, but this is a big game. You don't want to not miss out on this. I don't think. I should have had John get ready. Yesterday we met with Coach Allen and Chad Wilt and Walt Bell and Connor Bazelak. Spoke with Emory Simmons, Charles Campbell. Spoke to all those guys about last week's game and this week. Charles Campbell's another guy. You talk about he's done the yeoman's work when the pressure is on. And that kick in the Western Kentucky game, that could pay great dividends for Indiana later in this season.
Yes, it could.
Because now he knows he can hit the big kick. Not that he didn't already, but when the pressure's on, that helps you shake that off. That helps you not. It just turns it into another kick. And so when these kicks are needed, and Indiana, I'm feeling you're going to need a lot of kicks this year.
Probably.
There's too many times he has had 4 field goals in a game. That's happened too many times. Indiana needs to start scoring touchdowns.
I was going to look and see where their red zone percentage or their red zone scoring is. About said red scone. Indiana is 11th in the Big Ten right now. 10 scores on 14 attempts in the red zone. Their touchdown percentage is the second lowest in the Big Ten, behind. Can you guess?
Iowa.
Bingo. Nailed it. Let's see. 6 touchdowns on 14 red zone trips. That is not good enough. That's not even, and you have not played great competition to this point.
Nope. But it is what it is. So you got to play the game. They've got to get better. They're 3-0, so they have a chance to go. They actually have a chance to go 4-0.
They do.
I mean, this is going to be a hard game to win. I'm going to tell you, and I hate that because the following week they have to then go on the road at Nebraska and play a team that they should beat. But it's also going to be looking at it as, hey, this may be one of our only opportunities of the year. We've got them here at home. That's going to be a tough game for Indiana.
Here's the thing, though. I think this Cincinnati game is in a good position for Indiana in terms of the schedule, because if you win this game, you go into Nebraska with a ton of confidence, knowing you're 4-0, knowing you're 2 wins away from bowl eligibility. You just won a road game. I think that's absolutely huge. The other side of the coin is if you lose that game, you are going to Nebraska now playing a little pissed off. And I think that could be beneficial, especially in terms of can this team start off fast? Because I don't think in a place like Nebraska, and I know that they're going through their own troubles right now, they did not look good against against Oklahoma in any regard. Offense, defense, special teams, they looked horrendous outside of the first drive offensively and defensively. But you go out there with a little bit of incentive. So I think
that's what I was saying. If they lose going out there, it's like, wow, that should be a place you go to with confidence, and you lose the week before going out there.
No, I don't know that it rattles the team's confidence. I think if you go into that game with a win, you go out there super confident. I think if you go out there with a loss, you go out there with a little bit of an edge. So I think in terms of the schedule, I think this plays very well for Indiana. Plus, Tom Allen's not going to let them forget what Nebraska said. It doesn't matter that Scott Frost isn't there.
Nah, that's past. They won that game and put that to bed, and that was Scott Frost. It's gone. Now they just need to focus on winning that damn game. That's a game that they should win, and they have to focus on winning it, period. You got to put that crap out of your mind. And I know that we'll do this on Friday, but here's a game I can't wait to talk about. Minnesota at Michigan State. For the second week in a row, Michigan State involved in a game that is very interesting. They lost last week at Washington. Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix put it on them. And now that was difficult. That's on the road, traveling out to the Pacific Northwest, where this week they will be home to Minnesota. But
by the way,
Minnesota is very similar to Washington, man. They're going to throw that ball all over the place.
Well, they've been running the ball extremely well, and they just lost their top receiver. So that's a problem. But here's something else that really drives me nuts. Michigan State went from number 11 to unranked after a loss to what I would call a good Washington team, right? I think we all can acknowledge that Washington is
a now ranked Washington team.
How the hell?
Yeah, that
is Texas A&M still ranked after they got beat by an unranked Appalachian State team at home? By the way, Michigan State had to go on the road. The people that vote in the top 25, I need some explanations behind their logical
to me, that is totally ignorant. I think Michigan State is a very good team.
Let me clarify this. I don't care that Michigan State falls out of the top 25. Doesn't bother me, but be consistent. That Texas A&M loss to Appalachian State was way worse than Michigan State's loss to Washington. I'm getting off my soapbox now. And Cincinnati, by the way, Cincinnati lost to a top 10 Arkansas team on the road. They're out of the top 25 immediately. Like, come on.
Well, they should have won that game. They looked like crap. Arkansas didn't look that good, and they didn't look great. But we'll talk more about this as the week goes on, especially on Friday during the Red Zone. I can't wait. That's the most fun. That has become that day is just a blast. And hey, don't forget, if you're in and around the Bloomington area, stop by, join us for the show. I'll get you taken care of on some breakfast, and we're going to start doing some giveaways and things like that. But come on out to BB's Market each Friday morning or each Friday and join us. We've got lots to do this week, and I can't wait. Looking forward to talking to Chris Denari and Bob Kravitz and Rick and the whole group for the rest of the week. And then, of course, on Friday. That has just become a fun time, can't miss segment for the peeps. So I'm looking forward to it. Big thanks to everybody today. Of course, thanks to Chronic Hoosier. Thanks to Mike DeCourcy. And thanks to Dustin Schutte for joining us as he does each and every day. Of course, John, the producer. And most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. I'd appreciate it if you do me a favor. Go to Twitter. Give me a follow at Jim Coyle, ISB. I would really appreciate that. And if you're not a member or a subscriber to thehoosier.com, you really should. It is only $8 a month, complete coverage inside of IU, recruiting, the whole deal. You go into the boards and all that information is there. We're back tomorrow to do this all again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports